Welcome, I'm Darren and I'll be your guide today as we look at Upper Deck's football sets of UD Ionix and Holographics from the years 1999 and 2000. Now, during the mid-1990s, there were a whole bunch of sets that were thrown together as little one-offs. Occasionally they'd last for about 2 years, but these sets were hitting all the time. They would hit and they'd just kind of fade off. And it was a very fun time to collect because there was so much new stuff popping up all over the place. But Upper Deck had largely stayed out of this in football. Now, in basketball, they'd had a bunch of little interesting sets thrown in here and there because basketball is a very different market. And in baseball, they tended to do some stuff here and there, I guess more to bring in kids. But they hadn't really done much in the world of football, where you had companies like Pacific that this was pretty much what they did all the time. So in 1999, it was like Upper Deck was making up for lost time. They hit the market with 4 different sets that were added on to their normal collection of sets. Prior to this, they'd always done a really good job of having really standard sets. When they started something, they almost always finished through with it for year after year after year. They were able to sustain it. But for these 4 sets, it was like throwing darts at a dartboard and seeing what you ended up with. Of the 4 sets, one of the sets actually held up pretty well. That's Ovation, and it warrants its own video, so I'll be looking at that separately. Likewise, a 1-year set was Upper Deck Retro, and that doesn't really fit with the other 2 sets I'll be talking about, so I'll talk about that at a separate time as well. But there were 2 sets that are fairly well related to Ovation, but they are going to be looked at uniquely because of the fact that one of the sets only lasted 1 year and the other set did last a 2nd year, but they're little moments that were cool, but they couldn't sustain themselves. And those sets are Holographics for 1999, and then UD Ionix, which had both a 1999 and a 2000 release. So I'll start off with Holographics because that's an easy one to get out of the way. Holographics basically takes the spectral qualities of prismatic card design and plays around with it. And when I mean plays around with it, I mean this is a very frenetic card that is built more as an insert than as a regular set. The set's pretty short. It's only 60 cards and then another 30 rookies, so it's not a big substantial set, but these cards do look more like inserts than they do regular cards. The prismatic quality on the front of the card is very powerful, and so even though you have a normal picture of a player surrounded by all of this prismatic chaos, the prism takes over the card. There's basically no card design on these cards. There's a little treatment at the bottom for the player's name, and the background is essentially trying to get out of the way of the prismatic effect. So the cards don't have anything to look at, but they are very lively card design. They look really interesting, and on an individual basis, these are great cards. If you're collecting a player or you're collecting a team, you get one or just a couple of these cards and they stand out and they're fantastic. But when you put them together as a set, they kind of fall back. They don't really have much of a characteristic when you lay them out, say, on a card page. So the cards didn't really hold up very well going into a 2nd year. All of these cards have a gold version of them, and the gold version looks even better. And on top of that, there are 3 insert sets, well, technically 4. One is an autograph, but that doesn't really look the same. But the other 3 inserts all do look like the normal set, and every single insert set has a gold version, just like the regular set. Now, in 1995, Ultra had done the same thing. All of their cards in the main set, and then all of their inserts, or almost all of their inserts, had gold versions, but the inserts looked very different from the main cards, and so there was a very distinct quality where when you got to the end of the set, then you had the inserts. In this case, the inserts look just like the regular set, so the whole thing really does run together. It's an odd quirk, and it reinforces why it was only a 1-year set. So the main cards, like I said, there's not much card design to it. On the back, they played some tricks on the back to make it kind of interesting from the way card designs normally are, kind of like what Stadium Club did early in their run. But again, it's kind of a mess. The rookie cards have a little bit more design to them. They actually have a top and a bottom, so they look better. Now the main cards in the set have kind of a hatch pattern of the spectral effect. For the rookie cards, they have a circular pattern to it. And these cards look a lot better with that circular pattern. The way that the light plays off works better around the picture of the player. They also have normal stats on the back, so the cards read better overall. The insert sets, like I said, there are 4 of them. One of them is an autograph, and in 1999, Upper Deck had a way that they made their autograph cards, and this is another one of those autograph cards. It's just, this is the way that it looks for Holographics. But for the 3 main insert sets, the first one is 24/7, and 24/7 has more card design than the regular cards in the set, but again, because of the nature of how the spectral effect dominates the card, you don't really see it behind. The second set is Starview, and Starview actually does read really well. This is a really cool card design. It has a picture window through which you can see a normal card background, and the player crosses from the normal card background into the spectral chaos. And the combination of those two makes the card read really well, and it's a fun card to look at, and it stands out. And had they done the whole card set like this, the card set would have been really good, but they saved it only for this one insert set. And the star pattern in the spectral display, it also reads better, I think, than most of the prismatic tricks that they played previously. But that's pretty much all there is to Starview. And then for their most rare insert set, they had their Future Fame cards. And this is just a short card set of players who had really hit it big. So these were the big names. And the card design here actually plays around with the spectral effect a lot better. It has larger, less significant patterns on the outside, and then tighter, more lively patterns right around the player. So this card really does come out really well, and it's a lot of fun, and with its horizontal format, it stands out from the rest of the cards, but it's the one thing that doesn't read through all of the binder pages the same way that the other cards did. So that's pretty much Holographics. It didn't have much of a chance of surviving because the card set itself was kind of a half-baked idea. Fun, kind of interesting, but really didn't have any substance. UD Ionix, on the other hand, was a card set that was built with more of a future. These cards used a chromatic approach, and they still used in this case they used striations on the surface of the card in order to make spectral effects. And the spectral effects are much more muted, but they still stand out a bit when you hold the card, and so the cards read a lot more in a much more balanced way. The cards also rely on a bordered design, and this border design helps the cards read together more, so they look more like a set. They may not stand out on an individual basis to quite the same level, but the card set works better overall. On the card backs, these cards have normal statistics, so they also read a little bit better in that way, and overall I think the card design on the back is much better. Like with Holographics, this card set did have a complete parallel set. In this case, it's called reciprocal. And here they use a prismatic effect over the entire card. The player picture changes, the card color gets very dark, and the prismatic effect dominates the entire card across the board. And these cards work great as counterpoints to the regular cards. When you do a parallel set where you change the picture, I find it to be a little bit distracting because I like to see the two exactly the same way. So that's a little odd, but it is a fun thing. So when you find that the picture is different, understand it's supposed to be that way. They also had rookie cards that were designed in a radically different way. And these rookie cards, in 1999, they did not have the rights to use the actual team logos for all the college teams. So these cards look almost like half-rate college cards. They're pretty nice cards. They're not great cards, but they look like a whole different set. There's no blending from one to the other, except for the fact that they also have reciprocal cards as a parallel. The card sets are also 60 and 30, like with Holographics, but there's not much else that's similar between the two. The inserts for this set did not have parallels in the way that Holographics did. So these are all standalone insert sets, and a couple of them have quite a distinct rareness to them. So the first set I want to talk about is actually Holographics. The Holographics insert set in UD Ionix will in no way confuse you from the regular cards. First, because it has a UD Ionix logo on it, but second, because this has nothing of the prismatic quality of the Holographic set. This is a very clear part of UD Ionix, so they're using the chromatic approach. These cards are very rare, And they're kind of busy cards, but they really do look really good. They are fun in the chaotic, overly designed quality that they have. The second set is the Electric Force, and the Electric Force is rookies and veterans intermixed. And it's a card design that just really wasn't very well thought through. It's okay. The next set is the Astronomics cards, and these cards are better designed. In fact, they actually look a little bit like the regular set, so they work better overall. And then the last insert set, the last main insert set, is Warp Zone. Warp Zone is also a rare card. Not as rare as the Holographics, but it's still a pretty rare card. The card design also is, in my opinion, a lot better. It's much clearer with the border, and then it has kind of a background effect area. So the card stands out well. It's not as attractive as the Holographics, or definitely not the Astronomics, but it has a quality that is unconfused. It's a very strong card, I think. And then they had autographs that were just part of the UD Authentics that they carried across from 1998. I think this was the only time in 1999 that they did these particular authentic cards, but this was the last hurrah for those, which means this probably led off the whole year. For 2000, they decided not to do parallels. The card design is stronger. It's okay. It's not great. The card back looks great. I love the card backs on these. They played around more with the effect that the striations in the chromatic card surface can do, and that became a lot of fun. Not so much with the base cards, but the rookie cards, it definitely stands out. Now the rookies here are very distinct. First off, they did get the rights to the college players, so you can see the helmets the way that they're supposed to appear. These cards are designed where there's no background, so the background is a full card design treatment, and the card backs come either as a red or as a green back. Now these are not parallels. The cards are either green or they're red, and there's no reason for it. It's not based upon the team that drafted them. It's not based upon the position, because you could understand offense or defense. This is totally random. I haven't figured out any pattern for college related associations with these colors, so I don't know why they chose green for certain players and red for others, but understand you're not going to find a green and a red of the same player. And these cards are all serial numbered out of 2000 as well. So the card design itself, there's not much of interest at all, except for in the background color. They have these hash marks that kind of undulate around in the background, and that creates a really cool effect. So these cards are a lot of fun, and this is where this chromatic card design with the texturing on it really stands out, or it's the first time that you really get to see it. Like with the previous year, they didn't do any parallels in the inserts either. And the inserts are a big array of ideas. So the first insert is the Rookie Extreme. And the Rookie Extreme uses more of a prismatic effect on the chromium surface, kind of a rainbow effect. The card design is really good. The picture is terrible. The way that each of the pictures fits onto the card, it basically gets swallowed up by the card design, even to a greater extent than the Holographics cards. It's a big disappointment that I have. If you're going to make a card design like this that is so bold, you have to have a big close-up shot of the player in order to compete with the background. Otherwise, it's a pretty good design. The Super Trio cards are the next one. The Super Trio cards are a set of 15 cards, 3 cards per team, so 5 different teams. And these are the quarterback, running back, and wide receiver for each of these teams. And the cards kind of fit together into a pattern. They look really good. This is like the previous set, using kind of a prismatic quality to these chromium cards, but the design is more staid and balanced, and the player is more balanced to the cards. So these cards come out as elegant as opposed to the previous ones that are kind of a lost card design. And then you have the high voltage cards that come next. And the high voltage cards are a bunch of wide receivers. I think they're all wide receivers, are they? No. And the high voltage cards are a big letdown. The card design is too too dark across the whole expanse of it, and they don't play any tricks. And so these cards kind of get lost in the background of the whole set. There's not much to talk about. Conversely, the Majestics cards stand out as almost the strongest of all of these insert sets. These cards are more like the Super Trio cards. They're really good card design. They have a really good, solid, very elegant, formal border, and then they have an interesting play in the background in the inset around the player. But nothing dominates over the player. So the player fits with the border, which is what a border is supposed to do. A border is supposed to take the subject and showcase it and make it jump out. And while the player doesn't really jump out, he works with the border, so the border and the player work together as a combination. And the background, while it's fun and cool and interesting, doesn't jump out. It actually kind of recedes. So this is kind of the ultimate of proper card design. Sunday's Best could have been a good card, but again, it got too dark and they tried to play too many tricks. The prismatic effect is kind of lost from the fact that literally the entire card is dark. Which leads us to our final insert set, which is the Warp Zone. And the Warp Zone is the exact opposite of that. It does use the prismatic background on the chromium card. It is a really bright card though. This card jumps out, and it's the rarest of all the cards in this particular set, but it works as a great chase card. These cards jump out, they stand out. The card design itself is overpowering, but it doesn't completely overpower the player. The player is actually able to kind of work into the system. So the card design here, I think, really is the best card design in the entire set. I love the Majestic cards, but these cards, even though they're bold and brazen, I think that it was pulled off here. They also had autograph cards, and the autograph cards are an interesting little combination. They have two different groupings of cards, and there's a parallel to some of these cards. So the blue cards are numbered out of 300, the gold cards are numbered out of 100, and then there's a parallel numbered out of 25. It's kind of chaotic how it's done, so you'd have to see a checklist to really see exactly what to be expecting where. The cards designs are really, really nice card designs. For autograph inserts, they're unusually good. And the blue and the gold have very different effects, and then the green has its own effect. And together, these cards make a great little set. But they, even more so, they are great, great, great standalone cards for if you're collecting a team or if you're collecting a particular player. But you're not going to find all three cards. You don't have a blue and a gold and a green. So those are the cards of UD Ionix and Holographics. The UD Ionix cards, they lasted 2 years. They didn't really need a third. They were a fun little spurt of 2 years. Holographics is an interesting idea that they tried, and it didn't work. But this is what had been happening in the mid-90s. A bunch of card designs were thrown out to see what it looked like, and some of them were able to get a second year, and some of them actually wanted a third year but didn't necessarily get it. For these 4 cards from Upper Deck's 1999 release, they followed in that same format, and you get to see with Holographics and Ionix how these ideas, you put them out there, you see how they work, and then you get a feel for can they work or can they not, and they are a lot of fun to collect. So again, I'll be hitting Ovation later on, and that's going to be fun to see how Ovation grew. It was more of a standard card design, than these very creative affairs, but it had its own quirks and it had its own life. But that's all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope this video has answered all the questions that you may particularly have for these sets. If you found this video interesting, be sure to check out my other videos that I've done. I hope that you'll subscribe and check out the videos that are coming down the road. And I hope that you'll hit the like button if you did like it. And thank you very much for watching.